Hi, Miss Bersenio. So today I'm going to be making my Babcia's beef stew. And as I've already told you, she experienced World War II, meaning she lived through scarcity. And so when she was able to acquire meat, this is a meal that she would make so that she could kind of extend the ingredients she had to serve a lot of people. So I'm going to start off by telling you a little family secret that my mom usually doesn't tell anybody. But something that my Babcia used to do is she would take carrots, celery, and onions, and she would use them to make the broth kind of richer and thicker and just taste a whole lot better. What she would do is she would blend them up and then mix them into the broth. And so I've started with my carrots, celery, and onions. I've peeled my carrots and cut off the tops and the bottoms. I've cut off the tops and the bottoms to the celery and I've washed it. And then I've peeled the onion and cut it into quarters. So I'm going to start by cutting my carrots in half, or you could do thirds. And then same with my celery. And then I'm going to start, we always have to put water in the blender so that it'll blend nicely. And then we're going to throw in the carrots. And we're going to blend. Once you've pureed your carrots, then you're going to want to throw in either your celery or onions. I would do celery first. And you're going to want to blend these. And then I'm also going to throw in my onions. And I'm going to really puree it until it's liquefied. Like there can't be any chunks. It has to be completely liquid. Okay, so I've pureed my celery and now I'm going to throw in my onions. And I made sure to add just a little bit extra water so that there was no problems blending it and that it wouldn't get too dry, or that just so that it would blend smoothly. So I'm going to throw in my onions, and then I'm going to blend this entire thing until it's completely liquid. And then this part of the stew will be done. Okay, so now that we've finished our puree, we're going to get started on the meat. And basically what we do to start off is we rinse ours off and then we pat it dry. So we've already done that with part of it. And we're using about 3 pounds, but obviously during a ration period, you would have to use closer to 1 pound. So the recipe varies, but yes, so we're using around 3 pounds. So after you rinse it and pat it dry, we're going to toss it in flour. And we're using almond flour just because we found that my family likes it better. But you could really use any type of flour that you have. And just whatever you guys like. Okay, so we're going to throw these in here. And then we're going to seal this and we're going to toss them, making sure to coat every part of the beef. Okay, so once it's done being coated, we're going to throw it in to our pot, which we've already put, I think we just put some vegetable oil in. Yeah, I think we used vegetable oil. So, but you can use, again, whatever oil you'd like to cook with. So, we're going to toss this. And then we're going to put it in the oil, and we're just going to cook it to kind of fry the outside a little bit, not completely cooked because it still has to cook in the stew. But we're going to toss it and fry it. Okay, now that all of our meat is cooking, we're going to move on to the next part of the process, which is to add the puree in. And so we're going to pour in the puree, which we're going to want to cover the meat. It doesn't have to really go to the top of the pot, but we want it to at least cover all the meat. And if it doesn't, then we can still add a little bit of water. So we'll just do a little bit. Okay, and then we're going to add in bouillon cubes to go and cook in this. And we're going to cook it for about 2 hours. So we'll do a bouillon cube per pound. So we're going to use 3 because we use 3 pounds. And then we're going to mix. We want it all to be mixed up. And we do want to make sure that the meat is covered. And then this is going to cook for about 2 hours. Okay, so this has been cooking for about an hour and a half, and as it continues to cook, the meat gets a little bit softer. So we have about a half an hour left, so we're going to start prepping the vegetables to go in. Okay, so while that was cooking, we put in salt, pepper, and a bay leaf. And now we're just working on the vegetables to throw in. So you're going to chop, well, first you're going to peel, and then you're going to chop your carrots. Have them thick enough to where they won't really disintegrate in the stew, but you still want them to have some size to them so that when you're eating it, you can have all the different vegetables and you can experience them. Okay, so I'm going to finish cutting these carrots, and then we're going to throw them in, and then we can work on cutting the celery, which we'll throw in, and then the onions, and then lastly the potatoes, because they take the least time to cook. And I'm going to go throw these in. Okay, so now we've thrown the carrots in, and we're going to quickly chop up the celery and then the onion so that we can throw them both in at the same time. So we don't want to take too long to do this because we still don't want the carrots to cook for too long. So we're going to do this fairly quickly, and then we'll throw those in. And the last thing to do is the potatoes, and then we'll throw in some parsley, and we'll be pretty much done. Okay, I'm just going to finish up chopping the onions, and then we're going to throw both of these in, and we're going to quickly finish peeling the potatoes and cut them so that we can throw those in. So just make sure none of them are too big, and then they're ready to go. Okay, so the last vegetable we have to add is our potato. And so usually we cut them, we halve them, and then we cut them into quarters. And then we'll either cut them into thirds or halves depending on the size of the potato. I'll do this in thirds. But this is about the size you want typically for a potato. It could vary a little bit. And then we'll throw these in. Alright, this is what it should look like right now. You can see all the different vegetables, and you can see the way that the meat cooked. So we're going to let this cook for about 20 more minutes, or until the potatoes are soft. And during that time, we're going to add some salt and pepper, and probably some gravy master just for color. And then we'll be almost done. Okay, now looking at the stew, you can definitely see the color change from the gravy master. And you can also test a potato to see when they're done. And I just poked my fork in it. You can tell that the potatoes are soft. So we're going to turn off the heat because we know it's done. And then we like ours over rice. So we have a pot of rice cooking right now, but you can really serve it over anything that you and your family would like. Okay, so now that our stew is done, we're going to add some fresh chopped parsley. And we're also going to add some peas. We're using frozen peas, so they're already cooked, so you can just stir them in at the end. And you can stir this in and let it sit. Okay, so we're pretty much at the end of our process, which means that now it's time for just a few tips and tricks. Okay, now that the motorcycle is out of the background, I can tell you my tips and tricks. So, firstly, it's a really good treat because there's no real measurements that you need to use. You can kind of add whatever you have or whatever you don't like. You don't have to add. So it's pretty easy to throw together. It all goes in one pot, and it's very hearty. So it's a pretty good, easy meal to make, and it lasts for days. So you can always make extra and have it the day after or even the next day after that, which is what we usually do. We have it for a couple days when we do it for lunch or dinner. So it's a pretty good meal for that time period because it's hearty and like it's sustaining kind of, and then it also keeps for days. There are two ways to thicken your stew. We ended up coating all the beef in almond flour. But at the end of your process, you can make a roux if you'd like to add that to your broth to make it kind of thicker and more of a stew consistency. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Now it's time to serve it. You could serve it over anything. You could serve it over, we did rice, you could do mashed potatoes, you could do egg noodles, really whatever you'd like. You could even eat it straight out of the bowl, just the way it is. Okay, now that we're done, we can take a look at the finished product. And you can definitely see that the peas and the parsley give it a nice look and some nice color. And yeah, that's your finished product. And like I said, we serve ours over rice, but you could really do whatever you like and whatever you feel. All right, now it's time for the taste test with our helpers.
Yes.
Better be good.
Oh, that's really good.
That's delicious, actually.
What, were you expecting to be bad?
Yeah, no,
I think I've learned nothing this percentage.